What's up guys, Lifting here. Now that we are a couple of weeks into Path of Exile's newest expansion, War for the Atlas, I thought it would be fitting presenting yet another 5 3.1 PoE build guides. Unlike the video I released when 3.1 launched, these build guides are not necessarily starter or new player builds. Some of them might demand a bit better understanding of the game mechanics or require a bit more currency to get going. However, some of these are definitely still going to work on a budget or as a first type of build, but make sure to research them properly before you choose one. The links to each individual build guide is in the description below. So build number 1 on the list is actually utilizing one of the new skills that was just released in 3.1, and it is Ghazzy's Volatile Dead Inquisitor / Elementalist. And Ghazzy played this from the beginning of the Abyss League and ranked #1 Elementalist for a good while, until he, like many other hardcore players, eventually bit the dust. The general consensus amongst the PoE community is that Volatile Dead is incredibly strong and definitely part of the meta-defining skills in this expansion. Ghazzy's builds incorporates items such as 3 Grain Spectrum Cobalt Jewels to help sustain Mind Over Matter, and interestingly enough, also the new Oscarm, I think it's pronounced, gloves to seamlessly apply the Assassin's Mark curse onto your enemies. And with this build setup, you will have both a good map clearer and a good boss killer at your hands. The second build on the list is by Natt, and it is his Burning Spectre Summoner build. And having played something similar to this in 3.0, I'm excited to see Natt having updated his setup for 3.1, as this setup was absolutely godly when it came to destroying bosses in the previous league, and it supposedly still is. It's a great map clearer too, of course, but bossing is really where it shines, well, at least in my opinion. The build can do pretty much everything that you set your mind to. It's relatively cheap, fairly easy to level, and as a matter of fact, the only reason I didn't feature this build on my starter list video is due to the fact that summoners belong to a rather complex type of builds in Path of Exile, and as a new player you may not have the best experience trying out a summoner from the start of the league. However, if you aren't new, or if you just accept that it might be a little more complex and like the idea of summoning minions, then go ahead. I'm pretty confident you're going to like the build that Natt has designed there. There's a lot of thought that has gone into this. Alright, so for build number 3 on the list, I want you guys to not necessarily imagine a single build guide, but rather a concept that everyone is trying to figure out the optimal way to build around. The core foundation of this is the Poet's Pen wand that was released in 3.1. And this wand has the unique property of granting levels to active socketed skill gems along with physical damage to attacks as per certain level thresholds, as you can see. The higher level, the more powerful basically. Besides this, it also triggers socketed spells when you attack, similar in style to Cast on Crit, while this is just on attack and not necessarily restricted by having you to crits. And the funny thing is you can start using these wands already at level 12. So what this wand provides is, together with some levels on your character, of course, a powerful way of scaling socketed spells and allowing you to deliver them in a very rapid, automated fashion, with the trigger effects of the wand only having a 250 milliseconds cooldown. And it is possible to dual wield these wands and to add several different types of spells at the same time. So obviously this opens up for very creative use, and so far we've seen some pretty cool concepts. And I'm gonna quickly talk about them here. Not all of them are build guides, but I'll still showcase it here. So one of them is Loate's Summon Skeleton and Dark Pact dual wield Poet's Pen Ascendant. And the idea here is to use Summon Skeletons in one wand and Dark Pact in the other. This way a skeleton is summoned on attack and followed up by a blast of Dark Pact, thus automating the process of otherwise having to manually aim and position your skeletons, then following it up with Dark Pact. Another idea by Waifu is to do Glacial Cascade in one wand and Bladefall in another, and with his setup he further aims to convert the fist damage part of the wands and the spells to give a more efficient way of scaling both spell and attack damage. Ionku have also put out his iteration of it, and he's using Volatile Dead, dual wielding the wands and it's together with a Berserker. He uses Unearth in the other wand to generate corpses for Volatile Dead to consume and to deal its damage. And the build supposedly can clear any content in the game, and this version also have a true build guide designed for it too. Finally, Smelkami went with a Volatile Dead and Body Swap setup that also uses Unearth to generate the corpses for Body Swap and Volatile Dead to consume. With Body Swap, this leaves a very interesting type of gameplay that almost resembles Flicker Strike in some regards. Smelkami has a full build guide to this too, and has so far taken down the Shaper with the build. I don't think he specifically uses Body Swap for the most part in his setup, but it is a way of going about it, as he shows. So yeah, as I mentioned earlier in the video, Volatile Dead is pretty popular. It is pretty meta, but just keep in mind that not all of these Poet's Pen build variations I just showed you here necessarily have a polished build guide linked to them. It's a new concept, people are still working on perfecting the setup. There is however links to each iteration below, together with the other build guides of course. So use it as inspiration if nothing else. The fourth build on the list is Norse's Reave Slayer. In 3.1, Reave got a significant area of effect buff, which has made the skill significantly more interesting again. Together with Vol Reave, the area coverage of Reave is now pretty damn good. It's still not at the level of Blade Flurry when it comes to single target bossing, however, as Norse points out in his guide, that is a matter of temporarily swapping out a few gems if you want to do that type of content. And Reave is just so much better now when it comes to area clear and speed compared to Blade Flurry. And as the Slayer you will also get that sweet life leech, area of effect, bonuses, and not to mention the bleed mitigation of course. And I featured Norse's builds, or his build guides in the past, and he knows what he's talking about. Definitely worth checking out. So guys, build number 5, the last and final build on the list, is by Aihui. And it is one mean, high DPS, badass, boss killer, SRS, Necromancer build guide. And while SRS might not be the sexiest choice in the current meta, it is definitely still amongst the strongest. Especially after that damage buff it got in the patch notes. What the fuck? This build has some absolutely insane damage. It's easy to level, and it is actually rather cheap for the most part. It destroys the endgame but manages to work great as a starter build at the same time. And for what it's worth, SRS is in my opinion just really fun to play around with. Alright, that's it. That's the builds I wanted to show you guys. I hope it was useful or at least inspirational somehow. Make sure to check each individual build guide in the description below. If you'd like me to turn these types of videos into a bi-weekly series with new builds each time, then please let me know if this has your interest down in the comments. Also, if you have any suggestions for builds that deserve some attention for future videos, feel free to link and share them below for all of us. Don't forget to subscribe for more Path of Exile content. Come visit me on Twitch for that live action. You can find the link below. Thank you for watching, and bros, do even holidays.